It's time to step into the Coming Out Lounge, a cool, safe space to be true to your sexual self. With your host, Rick Clemens. Rick has helped hundreds of people come out of the closet, and now each week he's bringing you cool insights for loving and accepting yourself, boosting your self-confidence, and living a guilt-free, purpose-filled life on the other side of the closet doors. Cuddle up with yourself and get ready for heartwarming coming out stories, ideas for living authentically, and tips for being fully self-expressed. Now here's your host, Coming Out Coach Rick.
Hello, Closet Busters. It's time once again to stop the closet dwelling and to step out, step up, and step into living your truth. And today we're going to be talking about living your truth as a gay parent. Because parenting, man, it is truly what I would consider one of the ultimate joys and also one of the greatest challenges you can go head to head with in life. And now that there's so many other people out there in the world who have just been granted the permission as gays and lesbians to be married, I think there's going to be a lot more of these conversations going on. And I think the additional twist as a gay parent is that we're gay. And suddenly now that brings a whole new element of the conversation to life. It's how do you show up and how do you juggle all these different things. It's hard enough juggling things as a parent, but now you got to bring in this kind of sexual orientation conversation to the table. And that really can be a challenge if you make it a challenge as a gay parent. Now, personally, as soon as I kicked open the closet doors, I knew for me, being a gay parent was just going to add some spice to my life, but I never saw it as a challenge that I couldn't overcome. But for me, that was just my experience, and that's why I have brought someone onto the show today to get another perspective. I think we've had some similar experiences, but I always like hearing other people's version of what went on for them. And so today I brought another gay dad onto the podcast. His name is Jay Forte, and he's a fellow coach. He does a lot of business coaching. He's a motivational speaker. He does a lot of work in family, workplace, CEO, life coaching sort of stuff for people. He's also an adjunct professor at a nationally ranked university. He's a thought leader. I love this guy. We've been on his podcast just recently. And I really like that he brings a lot of mindfulness work to what he does with people. He really tries to draw people into that space of just really being the exceptional person that they can be. He's the author of a couple of books, one called Fire Up Your Employees, and the second being The Greatness Zone, Know Yourself, Find Your Fit, and Transform the World. And he's also host of a show that I just love. And again, as I said, I was just recently on his podcast, but I love it. It's a podcast for parents entitled Get Your Kids Ready for Life. Now, something else that Jay and I have in common is not only are we gay dads, but he loves to write. Check. That's one thing we have in common. He likes to garden. Okay, I'm only going to give that half a check. I love that to my husband. And he loves to cook, which I love to cook too. But the thing we don't have in common is he's Italian and I'm not, but I love Italy. So here's my friend from Fort Lauderdale, the Italian, Mr. Jay Forte.
Hey, Rick.
Hey there.
Thank you so much for letting me spend some time with you and share
Absolutely.
Your space
Hey,
yeah.
you gave me the opportunity. I so enjoyed it. And I thought, this would be a really good conversation to have. And I think it really is important now that we've kind of gone through this new change in at least the fabric of American society where gay marriage is actually accepted. It's part of our Constitution now, etc. And I think it puts a lot of conversations on the table that maybe a lot of gays and lesbians weren't quite ready to have a couple of years ago. Now we can talk about, are you interested in being married? And of course, for a lot of gays and lesbians, that would lead to the conversation of, and might you be interested in having children? Now, I know for you and I, we kind of came into that parenthood from the other side of the fence. So why don't you kind of share a little bit of your story with the listeners on how you came to be a father and then what happened in your life?
So I knew that I was the gay kid in my big Italian family when I was 5. I didn't know that's what it was necessarily right away, but I certainly knew with a lot of brothers that I wasn't like my brothers. But I also grew up in a family that had some very strict understanding of what it is that you do and how you live your life. And being gay was not one of them. And it wasn't so overt about that, but it was very, we're an Italian family, so we're a Catholic Italian family. So it was about, here's the set of rules. And my parents had this formula, study hard because we're all real scholastic. So study hard, get good grades, go to college, get a good job, get married, have kids, you'll be happy. Okay, next kid. And then that formula was for all of us. And when there's a lot of you, I think parents just wanted you to make sure that you didn't die. So here's your way. I wasn't so much worried about your unique view of happiness as, look, this is a formula that gives most people some happiness, so use this. And they were loving and caring. They just wouldn't have fathomed that formula, which works so well for some of my siblings, certainly didn't work for me. But it didn't mean that I didn't do it. So that's what I did. So I was not a real courageous person as a kid. In fact, I still don't think I am. So I got married to a woman that I imagined, and she was wonderful. We were best of friends. We met in college, and everybody else was getting married, so I got married, and it was a great way of making sure the world didn't know that you could be gay behind all that. So, back a while ago, that was the thing. If you could hide out, then you were fine. And quite honestly, I thought that I would never have to deal with it. I would just say, fine, it's not what I want for my life, so I'm not going to do it. But I was married just under 9 years. We had 3 kids. And everything just started to change. It was just a wreck. You had everything that you're supposed to have, the big job, the lovely family, the nice house, the big families, that supported all that. And I was totally a stranger in my own life. I was a lousy parent, so afraid that if I did anything that I felt was right as a parent, somebody would notice that I were gay and out me. And I grew up in a Catholic family. I was married to a Lutheran, so there was this big faith thing here too. And so one night, my now ex-wife just had to hear that the reason why we were challenged, that our relationship felt strained, because we're 2 non-adversarial people. We're just really loving people, and we were just really kind of at each other. It was me. I just said, she just needs to know that it's not her. She's taking all this on herself, and it's not her, it's me. And I told her that the reason we're having a problem is, I'm the gay guy and trying to be straight in a world that just doesn't seem to get me, and there's no place that I seem to fit. And in that moment, everything changed. The church kicked me out, and the families, we were the centerpiece of 2 large families, 2 ethnic families, and everybody was at our house all the time, and that all of a sudden stopped. And it created this really different mindset, that all of a sudden, as bad as I always felt about myself, now it was like proven that I was all of that, negative that you'd ever heard that about being gay was always wrong. And but I have to tell you, just before I came out to Linda, I went to as I'd grown up in a Catholic thing, I went to every clergy I could find and said, look, is it right or wrong to be gay? Because if it's wrong, I won't do it no matter how I feel. And every one of them said to me, what do you think it is? I'm like, don't do this to me. I'm an accountant. I want a right answer. Just tell me and I'll do it. And everyone said, no, it's a truth you have to figure out for you. And that was the big conflicting moment that said, I know me and nothing about me is wrong, but everybody says you are wrong. How can I do this? And what lesson am I giving to my kids if I can't be authentic? And that was the moment. And it got progressively more difficult for a while, and then it turned around. And now I get to do amazing work and be an open dad. So the challenge that a lot of dads who got married to hide, or because they thought that was what they wanted, or they were trying to make sure that people around them were happy with them, is, I think, finally given way, that this next generation sees that it is more important that you be honest and authentic, because everybody around you gets shortchanged, and you get shortchanged when whatever your reason for hiding, whether it's gay or something else, it stops you from showing up and delivering to the world something great and amazing that came packaged with you that needs delivery, and you hide it, or you refuse to deliver it when you don't acknowledge what your truth is.
Well, I think this is a very big piece of the pie, and is this shortchanging yourself, but simultaneously that you shortchange others. And I know I've been on some pretty big stages. One was on national TV when this kind of conversation took place, and I was challenged by people saying, but if you knew, why did you do this? And I used to get really riled by that question. Now I embrace that question, because it gives me the opportunity to roll back time and lovingly look that person in the eye and say, so do you remember how your life was 20 years ago? Do you remember how your life was 10 years ago? Are you doing today what you would do today? Would you have done that 10 years ago? And it's always very interesting to watch the reactions that I get, because then it puts it in perspective. When the decision was being made for you and I, when we made those decisions to be married, the world was a much different place.
Right.
It was a different time. There was a different vibe. There was a different belief system. And I think it's so important to help people. Yes, I get religious beliefs. I get how people view gay and homosexuality, all that. I understand that. I never truly set out to change somebody's belief system, because the minute that I do, then that gives them permission to try to change my belief system. What I just try to do is put the facts out there and say, this is how I am and this is how I believe. But I think in this day and age, we have the opportunity now to say, let's not do this any longer. Let's not shortchange each other. Let's be real. Whether it's being gay or whether it's saying, you know what, we're not meant to be business partners. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I think you're right in that. I think the biggest realization, and I'm pleased for it, all of this work we're doing around mindfulness has helped me tune into a world that is, I think, tired of always playing the script, and what it's looking for. And I think the realization's coming up as more and more of us become mindful and step into meditation and yoga and really understand that beneath the veneer of all of the expectation of what the world is this really remarkable, amazing person that isn't gay or straight, but just plain old awesome. Mm-hmm. And we can't deliver on that if the world around us, and particularly our own voice, if our own voice says, you're not worth it, or you're not valuable. And that voice sometimes, frequently comes from other people. So I'll share this with you, Rick. When I was in high school, we had to sing in chorus, mm-hmm. and I didn't have any kind of singing voice. So whoever I stood next to, that's the the pitch that I sang. So I was supposed to be a tenor, but if I stood next to a baritone, I went I'd sing down here, and if I stood next to a soprano, I'd be trying to sing like that. And one of the wisest things I ever heard came from my chorus instructor, who said to me, "Jay, it's so important that you use your own voice." And that, to me, there were so many levels of meaning in that. I know what she meant at the time, but it is, this world has its own view of who you're supposed to be. And that's you as a parent, you as a gay person, you as a straight person, you as a whoever. Until you say that my life is for me to choose, and that could I deliver to my kids the honesty and integrity of a person who stands up and becomes or acknowledges who they are and lives who they are without needing the world's validation and corroboration, could I then give them permission to deal with the strength or to deal with the struggles that might come their way, that watching me fake didn't train them in any of this. And trying to shift this back over to parenting, when anytime there's a part of us that isn't authentic, absolutely every other part of us feels the effect of it.
Yep.
And that other part is everybody in your life, and so the whole idea of the approval of this, great that they approve it, because there's still a lot of us that still struggle and still need the outward approval. But could we work harder on our own internal approval so that we could look at the world and say, it doesn't matter what you think. I'm not here to make sure you think I'm fine. I know I came packaged fine.
Right.
I got everything I need. The line we use, and we used it with the kids, is someone greater than you thought you should be you. Hey, I don't have to justify this. And in it isn't to be bold and in their face, but it's to be strong in your own sense of self, because you know that your kids will have to have that same strength at points in their life.
I love what you just said, that line of someone greater than you decided.
Thought you should be you.
Yeah, that's very powerful. That'll be one of the tweets for this show. So, but it's so true. And I think this is where we kind of get messy in these debates, and, all this is, I'm not asking anybody to not be themselves. I'm just saying, this is me, and all I'm asking is you respect that. And if we can make that happen, then I'm going to respect you too. Doesn't mean I have to agree with you or disagree with you. But something you just brought up that I think is so in alignment with how you can be a really good gay parent is this piece of giving your kids the gift of, hey, okay, I know I may have quote unquote lived a lie, been deceitful, whatever, through those moments that, mom and I were married and then as you each were birthed, but now I'm being truly me. And I am giving you this gift. I'm handing this to you to see the beauty that comes from that gift being handed to you. Have your kids kind of embraced that concept? Have they really gone with it?
So my kids were 8, 7, and 3 when my ex-wife and I divorced. And they were probably 3 years each older than that when I came out to them. Because when I first came out, it wasn't, my ex-wife didn't want me to kind of share with her that reason. Though she thought it was my responsibility to share, which I think that too. But it was funny. I was on a ride home from a family outing, and I have a cousin who's gay, and we were talking about people who are gay, and I don't know where the courage came from. And so I'm driving. Both of the kids are in the back seat. 2 of the 3 kids are sitting in the back seat. 1 didn't go with us, and I said to them, there's somebody else in our family who's gay. And they're like, really? Who? And me.
Wow.
And so 2 amazing things happened. My older daughter, she's sitting behind me. She reaches around my seat and hugs me. Critical, amazing moment. So I reach back to her. She touches my hand. I reach back to my middle daughter. She won't get near me. Like I had the plague, something in that. And so they were little, and they had to, watch their mother struggle. They had to try and process this. We tried to talk about it a number of times when they were little, but the world was very unaccepting at the time, and they were going to a church that was very unaccepting. So in order not to throw it in their face, it wasn't the right moment yet for that. So we did save it, and there were later conversations where we had this discussion about why was life like it and why is life like this now? But the one who said it best was my younger one, who just 3 years younger than them had already a very different perspective about gay parents. And she was one who was going through high school, and there were already gay kids going to the prom together. And when she was little, she called me at work one day when I had told her about being gay, and she called me and said, Dad, I don't think I want a gay dad. And I said, I can understand why you feel that way. When, I realized this is who I was, I didn't think I wanted to be this either. But, we get to be, we have to be who we are, and in it we find really great value. And we had this little conversation. She goes, oh, I get it. Okay, cool. I'll see you Saturday then. And that was the extent of it. And so I think the gay parenting thing is open for this beautiful new world where some of us that came through the conventional marriage and then decided we couldn't be in it and had kids, and then the world and the family tried to figure this out with us, versus 2 openly gay people who go together initially saying, I want to have a family, and there's never been this good, bad, right, wrong, evil, good kind of label that it kind of gets that sometimes comes from the fact that we were married before and had to divorce in order to move on with this. So I think there's this fresh look at loving parents, period, instead of loving gay parents. Where's that label of service at all in it when it comes to parenting? Do you love your kids? There's nothing that stops you, Rick, or me from absolutely loving our kids that a gay person wouldn't. And so the label of gay parent sometimes, it's not that I take offense to it. I'm just like, but why don't we just say what it is? We're just parents. And because if you think there's a gay parent, then you have found some reason why I'm less of a parent.
Right.
And that's just not true. I'm as good a parent, if not better sometimes, because I've had bigger obstacles to get through in order to be here for this. So try not to judge me, but support me. This how could we be united in our parenting instead of seeing, well, I'm a better parent than you, or that's not what real dads do, or real dads aren't gay dads, or all this other habit yak that comes from some previous story that we've been telling ourselves.
I love that term, habit yak, because it's so true. And as you were talking, I'm like, he's just so in my field of vision on this right now, because I always say I'm a man and I happen to be gay. I'm a dad and I happen to be gay. It would be like, and not to get into, politics and stuff, but if we look at some of the politicians running for presidency or trying to get to that place where they can run for the presidency, Carly Fiorina, it would be like, yes, she's a woman CEO. Well, okay, she's a woman who happened to become a CEO. It's when we break it down and we start to look at life through that lens, it becomes much less obtrusive and much less, okay, now I've got you labeled, now I can deal with you. But yet that's what we do as humans. And I think if we could learn to say, oh, that's Jay. Oh, he's a dad. Oh, he happens to be gay. All right, there we have it. It's just one aspect of who you are. You're also a guy who's a coach, who's an author, who's a podcaster. I mean, there's all these things, but I don't think we go out and say, oh, there's Jay the podcaster. I mean, maybe some of us do. I mean, okay, yes, I've had that happen to me. Oh, that's Rick. He's a podcaster. Really? That's all I do. Yeah, I just sit behind a microphone and do all this fun stuff, But it's so interesting. So I'm curious, your kids are much older now. And what's changed for you as they've gone through that growth themselves? I mean, you've got kids that are in their 20s now, right?
Late 20s, yeah. I have 29, 28, and 25. I have 2 that are married. And so there are some complications of being partnered or married as a gay person in a fairly religious family, I guess you'd call it. But holding to yourself, holding true, and so one of our challenges at, walking down the aisle is a really remarkable, so lucky you, Rick, so you have 2 daughters.
Yep.
There are these moments that are just, infused in your mind that will last you forever, and the walking of your daughter down the aisle is one of those. It just some of the most remarkable moments. So again, it's the same way any dad would talk about this, to have that moment, to be so proud and walk down on who this amazing kid is, right, and pass them off to the next person that you are charging with them, that they will support and love and care about this person the way you do. Right. There's a lot in that. And so there's no reason why gay is in that. However, then you get to the reception. Mm-hmm. And now you have to, who are the parents of the bride? Right. Is it you and your husband and your ex-wife if she's married and her? Or is it the two, the mom and the dad walking? So we're just getting used to some new traditions now of, how does the gay part of it show up for people who sometimes feel a little uncomfortable with it? And can you slow dance on the wedding floor, right, with your husband?
Right.
Because everybody is like, oh my God, and my kids were, Dad, you are who you are. You just need to be who you are. Yeah. And I loved the corroboration or the support because my head was playing out a little bit. I have a husband who has no committee. His there's no voices in his head saying don't. Right. Because I got enough for 2. So my committee was saying, oh my God, what would these people think? And I was back to being, 15 and gay again of, oh my God, who's looking at me? And they're going to have judgments. And, my husband just said, hey, this is our song. Come on. And the kids are like, come on, Dad, you love this music. Oh, okay, I guess I'm fine here. And there are these little things that just trip us up a little bit. And I just like to tell gay dads who have kids, gay dads obviously, just be aware of the little trip ups. Yeah. So you're aware of them, but don't let them take you down.
Well, and not only be aware of the little trip ups, but realize this is going to be part of life no matter what. There is no avoiding it. I know for me right now, there's some big stuff coming up, and one of those things is a book coming out where a lot of my story is told, and there's things that I am sharing with my family as we unfold this journey, and I'm really checking in with my kids to say, are you cool with this? This is what's going down. And I think navigating those little trip ups. Yes, going on national TV is not really a big little trip up. It's kind of a big one. But, when you start to look at these things and realize that the ability to be in conversation and to be at that kind of come to Jesus moment, so to speak, with your kids and be open with them is really the magic to me, that's the magical place. Saying, you know, I don't know how to do this, but I'm doing it the best I can. And this doesn't have really anything to do with being gay. I think this has a lot to do with being a parent, is realizing you're going to go through some interesting spaces with your kids. And some of those kids may be the little trip up things. And some of those things may be, okay, now they're tripping up, but you're tripping up in front of your adult child.
Right.
You know, and suddenly then everything's changed because now the conversations are a little more real than they were when they were 5 or 8 or 12 or whatever. And I think it's really beautiful when you can continue to open the doorway and have these deeper conversations and say, hey, I may be the parent, but I'm being really vulnerable right now and I'm showing you, you know, some of my own stuff, because I think this is part of what helps us help our children grow.
I think so too. I call it improvisational parenting. I don't know what's going to come up in this moment, but if I could show up to tune into this kid in this moment about this issue and be my authentic self, I'm sure I'll figure it out. And I think what frequently happens is we're so good at scripting what should happen here that we have a really hard time being present enough in the moment. So we're worried about the outcome instead of trusting our judgment that this is another sane, capable person who needs to be involved as a sane, capable person. And they need me not to try and play the parent card, but show up and be authentic. And then, and this is where our coaching, I think, serves both of us really well, then shift out of tell and move into ask. And as an Italian, so I partly put that in my bio because, the image it conjures up is, here's this opinionated Italian. And yep, I can be. And you should have seen the you and I went through the same coaching training. The coaching instructors with me, boy, did they get a workout. They kept saying, stop trying to solve this. It's not for you to solve.
Right.
You have to ask questions. And that has been wonderfully empowering as a parent. In this moment, could I be improvisational enough to see what's here and ask a lot of questions and then see what people think? And in that, we'll know how to navigate this together rather than think, I have to have all the answers and it has to look like this.
So what would you say has been one of the biggest challenges as a gay parent?
I think the biggest challenge is letting the adolescent mind that I still have sometimes about feeling that this is not about right or wrong, but what will people think about it? And it's still, as much as I work on it, it still shows up that I'm a little timid, and saying I have a husband. And when people see we have wedding rings, and it's like, so tell me about your wife. Well, she's got a great beard and really cool, the handlebar mustache, and and it's not because we're Italian. It's because I have a husband, and that one little moment that happens next, as they say, you don't come out once in your life, you come out all the time. And that little bit of fear saying, what's going to happen next here? And the big breath that you breathe for relief when they say, oh, how cool, tell me about him. As your shoulders drop and the stress goes away, because you know that at that same moment it could have been, oh, you're one of those. And you didn't look for a conflict. You didn't want a conflict. You just were trying to be authentic. And there's the world again saying, some of us think you're fine and some of us don't. And that little thing can really trip me up unless I'm really aware of it. And it can trip me up in front of my kids because I don't want to embarrass them. And I'm thinking, what am I going to embarrass them about?
Right.
This had nothing to do with anybody else. And it is everything to do with who I choose to be. And it is a lifetime or a lifelong process. At least it is for me.
Absolutely. Oh, I agree 100%. It is a lifelong process. And I love that you brought up the phrase of choose to be, because so many people want to tell us, oh, you've chosen to be gay. No, I've chosen to be me. I've chosen to be me. That's the bottom line. And gosh, in all the work that we do, as coaches, even though we do different kinds of work, I always come back to, there's a common thread here. In every coaching session that, and there's coaches I don't know that I can't help but think that at the center of it all is about helping people choose to be themselves and be their best self, no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's a business coach, if it's a, health coach, if it's, a divorce coach, whatever it is. This common thread is helping people choose to be their best self.
I think that's right, because, the issues and challenges that a client brings to us as a coach, the only way that the changes are sustainable is if they tap into their inner greatness.
Yeah.
That's where their strength is. That's where their solutions are. And if all they want to do is a Band-Aid approach to it, which a lot of the world, and for many coaches, they think that's all their job is. Let me just get you through this problem. I know the work that I do, we always start with great self-awareness work. We have to.
Absolutely.
And I think it wouldn't have been my mindset if I hadn't had to struggle with my own.
Right.
But I think, in learning to see life's challenges as life's blessings, then, the awareness of struggling to be yourself makes you very compassionate with your clients and your kids, to see that it is really difficult for any of us to be ourselves. And it's so not about gay. It's so about the world is loud and pushy. And it says this matters and this doesn't matter. And if you're on the this doesn't matter side, then you're not worth it until your voice gets louder. Now I'm back to my chorus instructor. Here, listen to use your own voice.
Yeah.
Your own voice has to tell you how amazing and awesome you are. Not to be better than others, but to be at least as good. And that there's nothing wrong with the way that you came out.
Awesome. So, Jay, this is the Coming Out Lounge, and one of the things I always ask every guest to share is something that they believe could really help someone who is either just starting the process, maybe they're middle of the process. I always say it's the process that continues for life, but when I talk process, I'm like meaning that they're just ready to come out of that closet, or that maybe they've just come out of that closet. What would be something you'd love to encourage someone with, some piece of advice, some tip that you'd like to leave with the listeners before we sign off for the day?
Yeah, thank you. This one was what saved me from being really close to committing suicide one night, was what I call my board of directors, and my inner circle, or my board of directors, the people who love you for you, not for you being something specific. Who is on your board that you can go to morning, noon, or night and just be whoever you are in whatever state you're in. And they have nothing other than just sheer acceptance for who you are, and are there to ensure that you remember the value of life and keep moving. And they're there to to help you feel valuable at a time where sometimes the world will truly make you feel not valuable.
It's beautiful. I love it. Love it. Well, Jay, I really appreciate you spending time with me today on the Coming Out Lounge. I just enjoyed immensely what we just spent our time on. I think parenting and really being authentically who we are is just a beautiful space to kind of wrap things up here. So thanks for being here today, Jay.
Oh, my pleasure entirely, Rick. Keep doing great work.
Thanks, man. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard today as Jay and I talked, and you really if it really hit home with you, go spread the word. We'd really love it if you spread the word about the Coming Out Lounge, because there's someone out there who has someone telling them they can't be loved for who they are, as Jay would say. And it's time for them to find their own voice and be heard for themselves, regardless of what other people are saying. So if this really moved you, just hop on into iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to this. Give us a little bit of love over there. And while you're at it, hop onto Facebook and find my page, The Coming Out Coach. We'd love to make you part of the family there. And if you're really, really one of those little tweet people, we'd love to see a few tweets about what you heard on the Coming Out Lounge today. That would be really awesome. And with that, we're going to say we're out of here once again. And we want you to go out there and step out, step up, and step into living your powerful truth each and every day. Thanks for being here. See you in a week.
You've just experienced the Coming Out Lounge. Go online to www.comingoutlounge.com to learn more, and tune in again next week for more stories and tips for being true to yourself.